because I was feeling all these different emotions and I just didn't understand. Like, where are they
Right.
coming from? What is
Right.
this? Why am I feeling like this? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then knowing this and understanding this better, now I know a lot of those emotions that I was feeling were not mine.
Welcome to Sensitive Stories. This episode is for educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for treatment with a mental health or medical professional. Let's dive in. So, Mishka, you share on your website that you grew up as an empath, a sensitive kid in Central America, and because of that, you had some struggles that you went through. How has your relationship with your sensitivity shifted over the years?
I love that question because, oh my gosh, it's shifted so much. And what helped it shift was the realization that I was actually a highly sensitive person and an empath.
Mm.
And once I realized that, everything made sense.
Yeah.
Because when I grew up, growing up in Central America, being in a Latino family, being a sensitive child who had all these big emotions and
Mm.
felt everything, and it was just not understood
Mm.
by my family or by my teachers or by others, right? It's just not something that in our culture is embraced.
Mhm.
And I would then be labeled as, you're too sensitive. And in Spanish, it is muy sensible.
Mm.
Or I would get like you're like a flower because you're so delicate, or you are like glass because
Mm.
you break so easily. So those were messages that I received, and
Yeah.
I internalized all of that, and so I thought, I'm broken. I have something wrong with me. I'm weak. Why can't I be like everybody else and fit in, right? Like I never fit in my family because I'm the only one that's like this.
Mm-hmm.
And being the eldest daughter of six, I am the eldest daughter and I have five younger brothers. There was a lot that fell on me and a lot of responsibility as well that also contributed to me feeling anxiety,
Mm.
depression, and just a lot of heavy, intense emotions that I didn't understand or didn't know how to regulate.
Right.
Yeah, so that once I discovered that part of my identity,
Mm-hmm.
everything changed. And now I see it as a gift. I don't see it as a weakness anymore. And I've embraced it and I have
Mm-hmm.
learned the tools to better regulate myself, to
Yes.
accept myself, and to utilize this as a strength and as a gift.
Mm-hmm. It's such a gift, isn't it? And it's also a journey to realizing that it's a gift and taking away those messages. It's such a palpable image or a strong image, breaking like glass, being a flower, being so sensitive. And I've heard you
Yes.
talk about being the eldest daughter, and I'm now really putting that together because I'm also the eldest. Not of I have a smaller family, I have two brothers, but you're right. There is a certain sense of responsibility that comes with that, and I hadn't realized that, but you're right. It does create more anxiety or emotion playing
Yeah.
that role in the family. And that's another piece we don't think about is, we talk about culture, but also gender, sex, but also the role in the family. There's all these
Yes,
pieces that come together with how you experience sensitivity.
absolutely. And being the eldest, I I felt overwhelmed. And
Yes.
already as a sensitive person, we experience sensory overload, right? It's so
Mhm.
easy for our nervous system to become overloaded. And so being the eldest and sometimes just also being the one that everyone would come to, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like they want advice or or it's my responsibility to help them. And so that created a lot of overwhelm. And that's where I also had to learn to set boundaries
Mhm.
to better balance, how I spend my energy and to better take care of my own self and my own sensitivities.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We're the best person for people to come to. We're very emotionally attuned, especially if we'll talk about this in a bit. If you identify as an empath, you really feel into what people are struggling with. And as the eldest, also your responsibility to take care of everyone, but it's incredibly overwhelming.
Hmm.
How do you balance all of that? Maybe you never really were able to do that as a kid, but maybe now. How do you set those
Yeah.
boundaries or balance that
Right.
responsibility?
Yes, I couldn't as a kid. I didn't know what boundaries were
Yeah.
until I went to grad school. I never heard the word self-care until I went
Mm-hmm.
to grad school. I didn't know what boundaries were, how to set them. And going through my own journey of healing was also how I discovered that part of my identity of being an
Mm-hmm.
empath. And so, yes, a big part of it has been um, learning where I begin and end, and where
Mm-hmm.
somebody else begins and ends. And that includes my siblings, and that includes my parents, right? And that differentiation of we are each an individual, and we are part of this system, and we have a dynamic, but I needed to shift some of that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And the boundary started with me because I had fallen into the role of the caretaker, right? And so immediately someone needs something, boom, I jump in.
Right.
And
Yep.
so my first boundary to set was don't jump in.
Ooh, I
You
like that.
you take a step back
Yeah.
and you allow the other person to do this on their own as much as they can. And that is also very humbling because you learn they don't always need my help. And I was just jumping in because that was what I was told to do, but they're very capable.
Mm-hmm.
And so you let them, right? You don't jump in to rescue them,
Mm.
and you provide support, but in a different way, right?
Mm.
In a healthier way. And so the boundaries start with me, but also with them, and sometimes being able to say, no, I can't right now. Or no, no,
Yeah.
this is not something that I'm able to do. Or, I'm not going to drop everything to help you. Like maybe I used to do that, but now I
Mm-hmm.
don't do that anymore. Right?
Mm.
I help you within my capacity. And so I say no, or I say, these are the parameters. This is what I can help you with within this capacity and within these limits.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Just taking a pause.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I've had to learn with my own brothers because I kept wanting to play that role, that motherly role. And my
Yes.
therapist helped me realize they're adults. They can take care of
Right.
themselves. You're right. It is very
Right.
humbling. Maybe I'm not needed as much as I think I am,
Right.
which,
Exactly.
and it's okay. Pause, let someone take care of themselves. And also, it's okay to
Hmm.
say, I don't have the capacity,
Correct.
or maybe even
Yeah.
the interest at some points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because sometimes if it's something that will end up hurting us,
right.
right? If we're doing something that is beyond our capacity, then it's going to be to our detriment. And
Mhm.
so what that creates is just resentment too,
Yes.
and more pain. And then that can also hurt the relationship.
Mhm.
And the other person might not really understand why that is, right?
Exactly.
There is such a thing of giving too much, and
Hmm.
sometimes maybe even loving too much. Like we even within love, within caring, we have to have those limits.
Mm. Can you give an example? What do you mean by loving too much?
Loving too much.
Yeah.
Loving the other person too much, maybe, is
Mm-hmm.
a better way to say it. And where you are neglecting your own self,
Mm.
where you're going just beyond, right? Like you are going way beyond what your capacity is because you love that person so much and you want to please them or you want to make them happy. But it goes against your own maybe just your capacity, against what you're willing or even able to do, but you're just
Mm-hmm.
doing it because you're people pleasing.
Right, right. You're
Yeah.
sacrificing yourself. You're giving them more at your own expense.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's what I mean.
sometimes we just don't have that in us to do. It ends up harming us and ultimately the relationship.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So before we get too far, would you mind differentiating I know you identify as both highly sensitive and an empath.
Correct.
Can you describe the difference between the two? We've alluded to it a bit, but could you say more?
Yes, and I am so happy to be talking about this topic because I don't think we talk about it enough, right? We don't talk about it enough in the field of mental health and as therapists, and it's just something that's so important. And so, as many people know, highly sensitive people, which is, I think, a term that has become more popular
Mm-hmm.
in recent years. Um, these are people who are very much in tune with their environment, right? And they have a sensitive neurological system, right? We have sensory processing sensitivity, which means that our nervous system processes everything much
Yes.
deeper, stronger, and we're just so aware, right? And also reactive to our
Mm-hmm.
environment. And so that can lead to things like overwhelm
Mm-hmm.
and fatigue, right? Burnout. That can lead to also us experiencing just stimuli at a higher level, right? Like perfumes, for example, can be
Mm-hmm.
so strong. I can't stand perfumes, right?
Same.
Like I have to use something that's very, very, very subtle,
Mm-hmm.
or I will get an instant headache. Or bright lights are
Yeah.
very just blinding, very loud sounds, screaming music. I know some
Mm-hmm.
people love screamo music. I can't do it. To
Yeah.
me, it's super overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
to my brain. So we have all these sensitivities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the empath, which sometimes I think we use it interchangeably. We might
Yeah.
say like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
an empath or I'm a highly sensitive person, and it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of similarities. It's not exactly the same because the empath has other traits, other
Oh.
qualities. And so the empath shares sensory processing sensitivity. Um, but the empath also has a hyper reactive mirror neural system. The
Mm-hmm.
mirror neurons are the neurons in our brain that might imitate something we see from somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all have those and we all can pick up those. So, like, when you smile, I might smile because
Right.
I'm seeing you smile. And that's normal, right? We all have that. But
Mm-hmm.
scientific studies have seen that the brain of the empath is hyper reactive. So the mirror neurons are just on overdrive and
Yes.
picking up everything from everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
So the empath actually can feel and sense in their own body and soul another person's emotions and bodily sensations, physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the energy. And there is such thing as an electromagnetic field
Right, it's been
that
proven, right?
it's been proven,
Yeah.
right? Like if you go to Heart Math Institute, you can find so much research about the energy that the heart transmits, which is the
Mm-hmm.
strongest in our body. The
Mm.
electromagnetic field extends several feet
Oh,
every
wow.
direction.
That
Every
much.
direction, yes, every
Wow.
every direction, up, down, every direction around us
Mm-hmm.
is like a huge bubble, and it's
Oh,
several feet.
wow.
And that electromagnetic field has, in hard math, has shown that it has information about our feelings.
Oh, wow.
And and the other part of our body that also transmits electromagnetic field is the brain. And so the brain
Oh,
and the
oh,
heart.
interesting. Yeah.
And so Heart Math Institute has all this technology where they can measure this, right? Where they
Mm-hmm.
can pick up this energy field and all this information that they have learned that is in it, information about our thoughts and our emotions.
Oh.
Empaths can feel that. So empaths can feel that subtle
Ah, the
energy
field from
and the
others.
field from coming from others. So it happens to me because as an empath, if I'm standing next to someone, or I'm a therapist, so a client walks
Right?
in and I can pick up their energy. I already sense what they're feeling before they tell me. Sometimes I can feel the sensations in my body, and so I might ask them like, do you feel pressure in your chest right now? And they're like, yes. Like, how do you know? And I'm like, I can feel it, right?
Yeah.
Or I can feel it in my belly or in my back, and I feel all those sensations from others. Um, I've also, this was since I was a child. It has happened more than 10 or 15 times in my lifetime. I can sense when a woman is pregnant
Ah,
before sometimes they know.
mm,
Like I knew I was a child and I knew my mom was pregnant before she knew. And I
oh,
told
wow.
her, I told her, Mom, I think you're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, What? No, there's no way.
And
And
she
then
was.
she took a test and she was pregnant and she was
Wow.
shocked. She was shocked. And she was like, How did you know? And I was like, You've been pregnant before and I feel it in you. Like the
Yeah.
way you feel when you're pregnant. She had 5 other kids after me.
Sure. So
So
you had some practice.
I had some practice, but I was like, but the way you feel to me when
It's
you're pregnant
different.
is different. And so you
Mm.
felt like that to me right now. And so that's happened when I was a child, as a teenager, as an adult, where I have told someone, I think you might be pregnant. Or even before they tell me, I already know.
Mm-hmm.
I walk into a room and I'm like, I feel something
You
different in
sense
you.
it.
I sense it. I definitely sense it. Or yeah, like I said, I'm feeling the pain that someone else is feeling that is sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Um,
So
it's
all
a lot.
kinds of different sensations. I think
All
a lot of
kinds of
times
different sensations.
I think of an empath as more picking up on people's pain or struggle,
Yeah,
emotional pain. But you're really widening the scope here.
it's
It's like,
widening the scope because it's not
yeah.
just pain or, you know, sorrow. It's also joy. It's also life. It's
Mm-hmm.
you know, if someone is coming in and they're super excited, I'm going to pick that up, right? And I'm going to
Yeah.
be happy as well. And so I can sense a lot of those different
Mm-hmm.
emotions, sensations, and that's what makes an empath different than a HSP.
Right. I'm almost picturing it on a scale. So all humans have mirror neurons, at least I think
Mhm.
so.
We
Um,
do, yes.
right? And then HSPs have more mirror neurons, but empaths have, you said, that's hyper reactive mirror neuron system. Like they're really picking up on all this energy nuance of someone's experience, that field that you talked about, that electromagnetic field that emanates from our hearts and our brains. And then
Yes.
with that comes emotional information. You said information about their bodies and what their bodies are going through.
Yep,
And when you're aware of it, you can sense the subtleties.
that's right.
What is that like for you? Because that sounds really intense.
It is.
And I can
Yes.
resonate with the part, especially about clients. If clients come in with a headache, anxiety, I can feel it in my body.
Mm.
And that was when I had finally had to realize I think I'm an empath.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
think
feeling all that.
I don't think I can ignore it anymore. But could you describe what is it like to live with that level of awareness about other people's
Ooh,
experiences? Yeah.
it's intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to breathe. Um,
Yes.
for very long before I knew that I was an empath, I
Mm,
just experienced as a lot of anxiety and I also developed depression.
mm,
And I felt like I was crazy sometimes because I was feeling all these different emotions and I just didn't understand. Like, where are they
right,
coming from? What is
right.
this? Why am I feeling like this? I don't
Mm-hmm,
know. Right.
mm-hmm,
And so then knowing this and understanding this better, now I know a lot of those emotions that I was feeling were not mine.
right. But
And
how do
and
you know
then
that when you're little and you
you don't
still, right? You don't.
unless someone teaches you, I think
Right.
that it's so important that we can start teaching and we can see that in a child because you're born this way and you're a highly sensitive child, you're an empath as a child your whole life. And so if we start teaching children about emotional intelligence, about emotion regulation, about boundaries, right, about differentiation from one person to another, we can start teaching them young, then that's going to
Yes.
make a huge difference. I didn't learn this
Mm-hmm,
until I was an adult
mm-hmm.
and with my therapist in my own healing journey, meeting another empath also, which that was like the biggest thing because she told me, I think you're an empath. And I was like, what is
Yes.
that? and then,
Yes.
I started learning about it and I was like, everything makes sense.
Right. Everything makes sense now.
Yeah. But the way that I manage it, right, it's taken me years and my own work and my work as a therapist too, and just learning, doing research, and testing things, what works best
Mm-hmm.
for me, what doesn't. A lot of self-care,
Yeah.
a lot of boundaries, um, and really, yeah, differentiation. And so one of the things that I do with clients, for example, when a client comes in and I feel everything, I will allow myself to feel it in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but just for a moment. And then I will set a boundary to let it go. And I will even say mentally, their pain is not my pain. It is not mine to keep. It is not mine to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And I let it go. And you have to do that very intentionally. And I think this is the work that we have to do to dive deeper, to be able to recognize, okay, where did this emotion come from? Is it coming from me? If it's coming from me, then I can probably identify the root, or I can identify that it makes sense, right? But if I can't, there's no reason, there's no explanation. More than likely, you picked that up
Mm-hmm.
from someone else. With my husband, he has anxiety. And so there are times when I'm totally fine. All of a sudden, I walk into
Yeah.
the room where he's at, and I am so anxious. And I'm like, okay. So I will ask him now, are you feeling anxious? And he tells me, mm-hmm. I have to walk away because
Mm-hmm.
I keep feeling it. So I have to set the physical boundary of distancing myself
Yeah.
as well,
Right.
and
Makes
letting that
sense.
go.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing, doing deep breathing. I do yoga as well. It's a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful practice to connect with yourself and to release. But there's so many things to do with self-care that I can share with you as well.
Mm-hmm.
But boundaries are key, very key, because these are mental, emotional boundaries, even spiritual boundaries too,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of I'm protecting my own spirit and I am connecting with me and knowing where I end and where I begin.
Yeah, staying anchored to yourself, tethered to yourself, so you don't get swayed by all this energetic, emotional energy that you're attuned
Right.
to. Because it's so easy, whether it's with clients or family, partners, spouses, even kids. Especially for me, the more emotionally attached I am to someone, the harder it is to
Yeah, the
pull
harder it
away.
is.
But you're
Oh,
right,
yeah.
it's really important. Is there a root there? Is this mine? So just like you said, tell yourself, don't jump in when you're trying to help someone. Take that
Hmm.
same pause. Is this mine? Do I know where it comes from? And if it's not, can I physically distance myself to pull away out of that energetic field, or at least internally distance myself? This isn't my responsibility. This
Right.
isn't
And
my
it's not
emotion.
mine, right? I just
Not
say their
mine.
emotion is not my emotion. Their
Mm-hmm.
pain is not my pain. It's not mine to
Right.
carry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
We each
mentioned,
carry our own, right? So,
right, that's enough.
hmm.
Yes. You said
Yeah.
your first part is acknowledging this isn't mine, let it go. And then how do you actually let it go? So I personally use a lot of visualization, like imagining
Hmm.
water wash over me or sending the energy down into the ground. What works for you when you're letting something go?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So one of them is definitely breath work, right? And
Mm,
so when I breathe in peace, I breathe
yeah.
in, just I imagine a color that is very soothing, so a visualization as well. But when I breathe out, it's intentionally releasing, intentionally letting this go. And as I breathe, visualizing it just coming out, or visualizing a color, right, of that's maybe not common color, right? Like, what does this feel like if it's heavy? Like sometimes maybe I imagine a darker color, and then when I breathe out, I'm breathing all that darker color.
Yeah.
But there's also things that I do to, um, I could use the word, I guess, restore and cleanse um, my own energy and center myself, right? So, like you said, is a lot about anchoring yourself and coming back to your own center, remembering who you are,
Yeah.
um, connecting with your own roots. And in that sense, for me, culturally, is also connecting with my ancestors
Hmm.
that have passed on, but that I believe and know are still with me in spirit. And connecting with them is also very grounding, and that I know that they guide me, and that they're they're with me, right? And again, this is cultural, is different in different cultures how we approach this. Um, but some of my practices are meditation, yoga, cleansing in water. So water is definitely energy, and it's restorative, and it does cleanse our energy. So anything you can do in water, whether that's take a bath or go in a pool or going to the ocean or just take a shower, just being around water too is very, very soothing and calming. Um, I also do grounding with the earth, so connecting with Mother Nature and connecting with the elements of the earth, because nature is the greatest medicine that we have. It's my biggest medicine and healer. And so I do earthing. And so earthing is basically a practice where you plant your bare feet on the ground. It could be a grass patch, but you could also do it just on like dirt, or you could do it on sand. But where you are touching, your bare feet are touching the earth, and you're connecting with the earth, right? And absorbing some of that restorative energy that the earth also has, that electromagnetic field and that
Right.
energy. Um, it's very, very centering and restorative. It's a very cool thing to do, to connect with Mother Nature as well. What other things? Should I get more into more of the self-care
Yeah, I think this
practices?
is great because
Okay.
you're really talking about these deeper practices of connecting
Mhm.
beyond yourself, whether it be ancestor work or connecting with earth through earthing, getting your feet on the ground. But yeah, what else works for you?
Yeah. Um, so journaling is super
Mm.
important, and I really like it because it helps you to go deeper, right? And talk to yourself and process your emotions and process your thoughts just deeper, and being really transparent with yourself as well, so that you can get to the root, and so that you can also differentiate what you're feeling, if that is yours, that it's something you need to heal, it's your own wound, and you need to do work on, or is this something that you're picking up from someone else that you need to let go.
Mm.
uh, and um, it just really helps to move through some of those emotions as well, so you're
Yes.
not stuck with
Mhm.
them, and some of the thoughts as well, that we can sometimes get stuck with our thoughts.
Yes.
So journaling helps you move through that as well. Music is wonderful. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
healing, and science tells us that
Yes.
music is such a wonderful thing that helps to heal. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it helps to soothe, but also it helps to decrease pain.
Mm-hmm.
There's research that shows that music helps to reduce physical pain in the body, and also
Amazing.
emotional pain. Right? So I surround myself with music,
Oh, I love that. Just having it on, letting it
having it
inspire
on,
you.
having it on in the background, or I start dancing salsa sometimes,
Yes.
and just let my body move and go with the
Yes.
flow. So moving my body, moving your body
Mm.
to release, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
And
huge.
and salsa is a little bit of natural bilateral stimulation, right? The back and forth,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
right?
I
I can
never
find
thought
it's
of it
really
that way.
regulating. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, you just made me realize that. But yeah.
It feels like a great tool to use, and it's fun and it's calm, it's
Uh-huh.
soothing. Yeah, what a great practice.
It's soothing. Yeah. Interestingly, yawning is another way of
Yes.
releasing energy. So
Mm.
just kind of like doing that, or
Yeah. Get yourself to
when
yawn.
you
It's
do
amazing
that,
how it works.
yeah, how it works. But when you yawn, you're releasing energy too.
Yeah. The
The body will
neurons going.
naturally do it, right? Yeah. So that's a great way to release energy too.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're feeling heavy, we tend to sigh. So that's very
Mm-hmm.
similar thing, right? And that's the body's way of also trying to release. So
Yes. So much wisdom there.
yeah, right. The
Right?
body has so much
Yes.
wisdom.
Yes.
Moving your body helps you release emotions. We know
Mm-hmm.
from all the research about trauma and how
Mm-hmm.
the body keeps the score, right? And when we move our
Right.
body, we are releasing so much that our muscles and our cells are
Yes.
carrying. So
Yes.
moving your body in any way that you can and
Mm-hmm.
that you're able to.
Yeah, it's really coming back over and over, coming back to self.
Yes, coming back to self.
Tethering back to self, rooting down, and then what does my physical body need, which then supports my emotional
Yeah,
process. And then
yeah.
love all the practices that you're naming, like, oh, like yes, these are all my favorites.
Oh, awesome. Good.
And
Yeah.
especially journaling, journaling is something I'll do sometimes a few times a day if I'm going through a lot.
Mm.
And it's just such a helpful way to just, yeah, get those thoughts out, process the emotions. Yeah, I think it sounds like, adding a physical component is really important. Would
Yes.
you
I
say?
think it's
Yeah.
essential. I think
Yeah.
it's essential, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean that the human we are made up of like body, mind, spirit.
Yes. Right. There's
So
a connection.
and it's a holistic approach of
Hmm.
taking care of each part of us, right? Like
Yes.
as a whole.
Right. It's true. We
Yeah.
need to think about all the different parts of ourselves and nurturing those. Yeah. So
Yes.
as you're going through these practices, I imagine do they help you connect with the more light or joyful parts of being an empath? You talked about some of the
Yes.
heavier parts, but what about the strengths or
Ooh.
the gifts? Does that help you unlock
Mhm.
those?
1,000%. A
Yeah.
1,000%, right?
Yeah.
I went from being this just drained, overwhelmed, depressed,
Mm.
just burned out
Yeah.
to now to being someone who can honor myself and honor this as a gift, as a strength. And where now I have learned to use it, leverage it, right,
Mm.
to do good for me and to others because I use it in my work as a therapist, as a counselor, as a coach, and I bring that into my practice, right? And so it helps me attune with my clients, I think, to a whole nother level in experiencing a lot of what they're experiencing in the moment.
Mm.
And I've really considered that as like a superpower,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, I understanding it and accepting it also allowed me to let go of the stigma. And when people, even if someone tells me I'm sensitive, um, I'm like, yeah, I am. And I love
Yes.
it, like
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer something that I should feel ashamed of or that I should feel there's something wrong. So I embrace it. It is my superpower, it is my strength. And I love feeling and sensing, right? And
Mm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy being so connected to nature, to animals, to other people, um, and I also enjoy being able to send it back sometimes, release it,
Yes.
set the boundaries, and be very aware that that's what I'm doing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that awareness changed the whole game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. It's like when you take control,
Yeah.
you're intentional about how you take care of yourself, so much opens up. And I love how you said, yeah, I'm sensitive. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with that. Because I
Mm-mm.
think people oftentimes will throw it out as an insult and then expect us to,
Mm-hmm.
want to change, to react. But it's like, yeah, I'm sensitive. And it can just be
I
that.
am. And it's okay, right? Like
Yeah, and
there's
it's
nothing
okay.
wrong. I'm
Right.
not ashamed of it. Yeah, and it is a gift, and I think especially the world we live in, when there is so much pain and so much loss, and just we keep going through everything that's happening right
Yeah.
now, right? Uh,
Mm.
we need empaths. We need highly sensitive people. We need
Yeah.
people who can be attuned and aware and very empathic, and
Mm-hmm.
our nature is to want to help others, and our nature is to want to make a difference. And most of us end up doing that. Well, most of us end
Mm-hmm.
up choosing, careers um, where we're helping others and where
Yeah.
we're doing something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who are famous who we know now they've been identified as empaths.
Yeah.
And one of them was Gandhi, and another
Mm-hmm.
one, Mother Teresa. Oprah, Princess Diana. And if we think about, these are all people who have made a big impact in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There are people that have shown up, maybe lived lives that people wouldn't think would be possible as an empath or highly sensitive person. And I also see you doing that. You know, you've put a book out, Self-Care for Empaths. Is that the title? Do I
Yes.
have that right?
It's the Empath Self-Care Journal. I can show it to you. I have
Oh,
it
I
right
would love
here
to
with me.
see it. Oh, there it
Yeah.
is. Perfect. So the
Yeah.
Empath Self-Care Journal. So you've put out a book, you're doing coaching. I know you showed up in the media. You're really living an impactful life as an empath and HSP. And so you're just proof of what's possible. And
Thank
so
you.
it's a good reminder that we don't have to get stuck in that overwhelm,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
depletion or burnout, constantly self-sacrificing. There is more that's possible. And you shared so many
Yeah.
amazing examples of what we can do to get to this place, to uplift ourselves, to utilize our gifts, to make an impact. You know, there's so many things available that I think we often think are off the table
Yeah.
for us as sensitive people.
Yeah. And a lot of times we think, oh my gosh, this is such a burden and like I hate it. And it can be. And
Mm-hmm.
especially when we don't know how to manage it or we don't have the tools. But the good news is we can learn the tools and we can live a life where we have more peace, we have more balance, and we are not constantly burned out. We can be peaceful and thrive. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the good news that we don't have to
Yes.
live burnt out, overwhelmed all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have to. It's just a matter of slowly setting those boundaries, slowly um, just finding practices that work, whether it's
And
connecting with
finding practices that
nature,
work.
connecting with breath work, yoga. I mean, these are all amazing resources. Just recently, I've reconnected to my yoga practice because it's
Hmm.
incredible the impact.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot, 20 or 30 minutes in the morning or before I go to bed. And it makes a significant
Mm-hmm.
difference. And that's that differential susceptibility, which I know you've talked about it as well, that we're more impacted by positive supports or practices.
Yes.
Why not
Hmm.
lean into those? You
Yeah,
can get more out of
exactly.
it. Yeah,
Lean into what works for you.
exactly.
And there's more work we can do, right? Like
Hmm.
especially in therapy, in reframing our thoughts, learning to
Yeah.
manage negative thoughts, right? And um, learning how to have healthier relationships. And that's where also boundaries come in.
Yes.
Doing somatic practices, right? Utilizing the body, connecting with the body, and spiritual practices. And that depends on
Hmm.
each person and
Yeah.
what you might consider is spiritual for you. It can be just connecting again to yourself. It could also be connecting like me with your ancestors, or to a higher power if that is your practice. So this is very dependent on your culture, your beliefs, but it's still, you know, a wonderful way to reconnect with you. And that's what yoga does too. It really helps
Hmm.
connect with your own self and with your body and have
Yes.
a better relationship with your body as well.
It really is a
Hmm.
deepening practice. So I'm
Hmm.
thinking about, you know, we've offered a lot of examples, and thank you for that, of what are some of the steps people can take to connect more deeply inward, to access those sensitive strengths. And a lot of times we get stuck in the stigma of sensitivity. You know, we
Hmm.
believe the myths that we've heard about sensitivity. Oh, it's not real. I don't actually need this. I'm being too reactive. Can we talk about what are some of the myths that people might hear that aren't true when they're trying to
Yeah.
connect back to themselves?
Well, I think the biggest one is that sensitivity is a weakness. And if you're sensitive, you're weak. You need
Hmm.
to toughen up,
Right.
right? I think all of us sensitive people can probably say that we've been called too sensitive at some point in
Yep.
our life,
Hmm.
right? And so we believe it's a weakness ourselves. We internalize that message. And
Yeah.
so realizing that that's not true, that it
Hmm.
is in fact and can be a strength, um, then makes a whole difference, right? In how you see yourself and then how others will see you, right? The way that you present yourself as well. Another one I would say is that people, and this is about empaths,
Hmm.
that empaths are the result of trauma or a bad childhood.
Yes, thank you for addressing that.
Yes. And so what I will say is that we all experience trauma. We all experience trauma at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we're not all empaths. Only 5% of the population are empaths. Only 5%.
Wow.
HSPs make about 20% of the
Mm-hmm.
population. Empaths only 5,
Right.
according to the studies and the research so far that has been done. So it's not it maybe there's a correlation where so we don't know where empaths did it come from a whole line of intergenerational trauma that
Mm-hmm.
that we've developed sensitivity, but we don't know that. We don't have the
Right.
research to prove that.
Right.
So there's a correlation, but it's not cause and effect, right?
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
trauma doesn't make the empath. And in my experience, I didn't have a bad childhood,
Mm-hmm.
but I was always an empath.
Right.
To me, it's like I was born like this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've lived it in my own body, and I was born this way. So I wasn't made with, because of trauma. So
Right.
I think that's one of the ones that I hear a lot.
That's an
And
important one to let
yeah,
folks know this is just how you're born. 5% of the population born as empaths, 20% born as highly sensitive people.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, we all have trauma, and there's intergenerational trauma that we all carry.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to present differently, but I don't know who decided that empaths are it, right? Like, oh, yeah, we're the
Right.
result of trauma. It's not true. And also, there's another one about empaths is that empaths are not real, and in fact, are covert narcissists. That's a
Yes,
big
that
one.
is, yes. Mm-hmm.
um, but empaths are real, and there's enough research out there that we can read, that we can look up. There's been studies that have also said back in the 80s, more
Mm-hmm.
research, not the recent research has shown, yes, empaths are real. There was research in the 80s that said there
Mm-hmm.
weren't, or that they were
Mm-hmm.
that we were narcissists. But
That has since been
uh,
debunked.
yeah,
Yeah.
and anyone can be a narcissist. Like narcissism is a spectrum. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that even HSPs can be narcissistic too.
Mm-hmm.
Empaths could be too. I mean,
Right, but not
it's a
all.
whole, no, not all. So that's exactly it. Like narcissism is a spectrum, and we can all have even like a level of it in us. But it doesn't mean, oh, okay, if you call yourself an empath, it means you're a narcissist,
Right. Right. It's
right?
not that straightforward, right? There's so
No.
many different layers that we're talking
Yeah,
about
and
here.
nuances, yeah,
And
for sure.
nuances, exactly.
And so, but I think, someone might hear something, or you'll just take a piece that you heard from a
Right.
study,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes viral, it becomes pop culture.
Yeah,
But
right.
it isn't accurate. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's important to have the right information.
That's right.
Mm.
Exactly. And really needing to do that's why it's so important to learn about yourself as a sensitive empath, to not just take something you've heard on social media or something maybe someone pulled out of a study, a one study out of many,
Yeah,
and running with that as fact. It's important to learn more
exactly.
about yourself. And
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. Hmm.
if
Um,
Mishka, for the people that are out there that are just learning about themselves as empaths, as HSPs, maybe who are struggling to put some of these practices into place, is there a message that you could share, a message of encouragement that you could share with them?
yes, I will say you are not broken.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with you. And you were born this way, and you can thrive. You just got
Yes.
to learn the right tools. And, you know, we all have a healing process and a healing journey, and it's our own journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we got to start it somewhere. If you haven't started it, maybe, starting with a book, right? Like you have a wonderful workbook as well
Thank you.
that's very, very helpful for HSPs, and has so many wonderful tools as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and starting there, or looking for a therapist that
Mm-hmm.
you align with. That's so important, right? To align with your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it, right? We just take it one step at a time. Take one step at a time. and find kindred spirits too. We are out here, right? We need to surround
Yes.
ourselves with other people who get us, right? Who are similar to us, the
Mm,
like-minded folks. So that is important to surround ourselves with, because then we start noticing like, wait a minute, there's so
mm-hmm.
many others who are like me, right? And we can support each other, and
Yes.
we can thrive. We don't have
Yes.
to, we don't have to hide in the shadows,
That's
and sometimes
right.
that makes it very lonely and very difficult when we're hiding this part of ourselves, because we might be ashamed, because people have told us that it's it's a weakness,
Right.
or we've been pathologized, because
Mm-hmm.
the empath gets pathologized a lot, and I think high
Mm-hmm.
sensitivity as well, even by therapists who don't know about this, because we don't learn about this in school. We don't
Right.
learn about this. This isn't part of our training. This is something
Right.
that you have to go out there and learn. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say to therapists out there, I encourage you to really educate yourself and learn more about this,
Yeah.
because there's going to be so many clients walking through your doors who
Mm-hmm.
are going to be empaths, who are going to be highly sensitive, and will need your help.
That's right. And to receive them with open arms and an accurate understanding of what that experience is and where it comes from, that it's something you're born with, and supporting them to live a life where they can shine and thrive and allow those strengths to come through. Because it really is about the choices you make day to day. How can you
Yeah.
support yourself? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much. You've
Yeah.
offered so much good information and so many resources that I know are going to resonate with people. I will make sure
Thank
that I
you.
share your book in the show notes
Thank
along
you.
with your
I
website and social
appreciate it.
media. So I'll also share your upcoming course for empaths, Finding Peace and Balance. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yes, I am going to be launching an online course. This is going to be live,
Okay.
and it's called Finding Peace and Balance. And we're going to be meeting for 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And this is going to really dive deeper into what it is to be sensitive, what it is to be a sensitive soul.
Hmm.
And when I say sensitive souls, I include both empaths and HSPs
Yep.
within that realm. And so both are welcome to the course. And we're going to be
Yes.
doing a lot of the techniques that I shared today,
Oh, perfect.
and a lot more. Right? We're going to be
Mm-hmm.
learning how to better protect ourselves, how to restore our energy, how to better connect with ourselves, and how to better nurture ourselves and practice that self care. And I will be including my book as well for anyone who signs
Great.
up. We'll get a copy
Okay.
of the book,
Oh, perfect.
and it's going to be starting middle of May.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on my website, and that's where you can sign up, and you
Perfect.
can find out more information and see um, when it's going to be starting exactly, because
Mm-hmm.
I haven't set the exact date, but it's going to be around the middle of May.
Perfect. Oh, I love that. Such a great resource that people can dive into, have some community, be guided through these practices that are so important and essential. Because it can be
Thank you.
hard to do it in a vacuum all by yourself. It's so,
Yes.
yeah, so important to have that. Wonderful.
It's important to have the support. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll make sure I include that in the show notes as well.
I
Great.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, April.
Of course.